So it's easy to see that, from the 40s and the early beginnings of camp to the later years of camp, that these themes of innovation and creation and relationship with nature and silence and solitude permeates. And the story that you hear decades later, after the beginning of camp, could very well fit in the early years. And so for all of us, we can think about if we're connected to camp, there's hundreds of stories that could fall into any one of these decades. So next up, I'd love to hear from the panelists about how F&W and these rich experiences went on to impact your life later on in the path that you've chosen. And it's open.
That'll be later. That's later with the drinks, I guess. No. Just joking. I guess I'll be real quick. So there's a lot of things that have definitely impacted my life. I mean, my mother used to be a counselor at Indian Brook, D. Johnson, Dorsilla Johnson, and she was there. And yeah, I look similar to her. They say we look like sisters. But anyway, we're sister and brother. So anyway, real quickly, I guess some of the big things, there's a lot of things that came out from Farmer Wilderness that impacted my life. Obviously, when you talk about the light and seeing the light in someone and accepting different people for who they are and just sharing with different communities. But when I was at TF, one of the biggest phrases that kept popping up, particularly in my first year at TF, was work is love made visible. And what does that mean? It means that when you're working, you're showing love and appreciation for the things that you do. Currently, I work, I actually just got promoted in my job, so I'm very happy about that too. Thank you. I was working in community affairs under the mayor's office for under Mayor Bloomberg in New York City, and I was recently promoted to work on as director of external affairs for Brooklyn and Queens to do housing recovery. So my whole job is focused on Sandy recovery, and it's been focused on Sandy recovery for the past, ever since the storm started. And I've been, thank you. As you do, that's fine too. Think about the people there, but I remember about a day or two after Sandy hit, I would raise up tents, help people set up tents with FEMA. With folks in the community, I would talk to people individually in the community about the damage that they saw, the flooding that they went through, just how scared they were if they didn't evacuate in that particular area, and just kind of listening to folks, partnering with community groups. And I just think about, there's just hours upon hours on end of feeling really tired and just trying to work as hard as possible and sort of feel what the people are going through. And I knew that I had to continue to work because this was bigger than government, this is bigger than politics, this is bigger than just money or anything of that nature. This is people's lives and people's communities, and these people had so much and then all of a sudden lost a lot in an instant. And without their community, there wouldn't be New York City, and they're so resilient and they've been living there for years. And I want to be able to come back the following year and say, look, I'm glad I've been here to help and work with you and share your pain, share the things that have really impacted you and the loss that you've gone through, be it your home or a life or so on. And if I continue to do that, I'm showing love to you. I'm showing my care to you. I'm showing the fact that you're important no matter what. It's not about this hierarchy or systems or any kind of bureaucracy that's in place. Really, it's about people at the end of the day. And I think that that's something that Farmer Wilderness showed me, whether it was building a cabin or working on the chicken cathedral or trying to fix the roof on loggers. I mean, these are all things that kind of played a huge role in what I do in terms of working with communities. And it's extended from Vermont down to New York City. And I lived in China and met my wife and all these different things that have kind of played a role in terms of working to show love and to try and give love to people as much as possible. So that's the major impact that Farmer Wilderness has delved upon me. Thank you.
Is this on? You do. My chosen profession, which I sort of backed into, was finance and then technology and finance, which you can all boo, by the way. It's all right. I was part of the organizations that screwed us all. But Farmer Wilderness, Farmer Wilderness is an interesting place. The single-sex camps, when I was there were a lot more single-sex camps because Sam was really single-sex back then too. But the Tamarack Farm is where the rubber hits the road in terms of what you learn, especially if you're like me, an only child. So you don't have anybody your own age, siblings you have to live with and negotiate with or anything like that. And God forbid they're the other sex. And Tamarack Farm was a very, very, very intense experience for me. But it also taught me a lot of how to negotiate but still be independent. So how to be part of a community but be true to yourself. And as somebody who is now a Quaker and is working and a liberal and working in the finance world, I tend to stick out a little bit, especially because I work in investment banking and all around the world. And a lot of people, it's funny, I have similar conversations with people today that I had with campers when I was 12 about what's it mean to be a Quaker and all this stuff and everything else. And it actually is an interesting bridge because it gets us around all of the red state, blue state, conservative, liberal, all that stuff. And it actually helps to just get the conversations going so that we can start to interact as peers or part of the community so that we can work closely together. That's helped me a lot because I've mostly lived overseas doing this. So having an American passport coming in as a boss, a lot of people don't want to interact with you right away. They're very, very standoffish, especially in England. And it really has been the Quaker background that F&W and Germantown Friends gave me, but the experiences of learning how to cohabitate with different types of people and negotiate and then disagree, but still be able to come back together and work together. Because if you can't do that, you cannot be successful in anything you're doing. We'll forget finance, but if you can't continually come back together, there's no path forward. So that's what I've taken away.
I learned lots of things when I was a counselor, mostly by doing things wrong and figuring out that there was a better way. I even had the benefit of being explained by a wise and brave camper how I wasn't doing a good job of taking care of another camper, and that was actually a very important learning experience. But I've reflected on things, active learning experiences that have had effects on me. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my time on the board. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all the work we did on anti-racism, which was just with some good help from a lot of good friends that was really important. But the thing I wanted to reflect on was I got to be treasurer and head of the finance committee for 6 years when the camp wasn't doing as well as it's doing right now. We had 3 directors, we had 3 finance directors, we had several facilities directors. We didn't know how many buildings we had, literally. And I don't know how many people who aren't on the board even know about the Killington Fund. But the camp wisely made a deal with the Killington ski area to sell water for snowmaking in the winter by way of a lease that on Woodward Reservoir so that they can take water from the reservoir. If that hadn't happened sometime in the late 90s, there probably wouldn't be a camp here today. That's how close we were. And Peter said, that we were up. I mean, we were flirting with being under 600 campers at parts of that time. So 800 is just dramatic and wonderful. And not every Quaker organization, in fact, most Quaker organizations aren't known for financial acumen or thinking carefully about finances. And I'm not, it wasn't my training. You know, I'm a lawyer, I do finance work, but that's different than understanding the finances of an organization. And leading kids in the wilderness is easy. leading friends, thinking about the finances of an organization is a very, very challenging job. And I remember explaining at one point that for the biologists in the crowd that money in an organization is like cyclical ATP in the biology of an organism. It's what carries the energy around and allows the rest of the parts of the body to function. I think we got it. We worked hard at trying to find better ways to say what it was that the numbers meant so that people weren't afraid of them. In one sense, I served on a lot of hiring committees too, and the short answer is we hired Peter and we all lived happily ever after. But but we have something very important in our care, and we can't allow ourselves to be any more afraid of the financial responsibilities involved than we are of the safety and waterfront and campcraft things that we teach. And that's what will keep us being a sustainable organization and keep us being here for another 75 years.
I don't think there's much that I can add to what the others have said. I think probably, I lost track of the camps really for a little while. It wasn't until the dam broke that I got interested again. And then I started skiing and coming back to Vermont, and I realized how much I loved it in Vermont. Not only in the winter, but the summer, the hiking, even now the smell of fern just reminds me of Vermont whenever I'm in a grove of fern. So I got interested again and realized how much the camps had meant to me and had sort of influenced how I looked at life. Just getting along with people, cooperating, enjoying nature, just all of that was so important to me. And now my grandchildren are there, which just thrills me no end. 5 of them have attended the barn camp. So, and we live we have a second home right down the road, just about 6 miles from the camp. And when I drive through it, my husband Clay says I'm taking a drive down memory lane. I have to do that, or go for a swim in the lake or something like that. It's just Vermont. When we drive from New York, there's nothing wrong with New York, but when we come up out of Bennington, or coming towards Bennington, and it says Vermont, the sign doesn't have to be there. I know it's Vermont. It is so different. And I just love the whole state of Vermont and the fact that I spent 7 summers here. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Are they both on? Oh, okay. Camp really has informed my adult life. When I first arrived at Farm and Wilderness, there I was, black girl from Connecticut, loved the outdoors, but I wasn't brought up in a culture that necessarily thrived on that. My family did, my father, my mother, my brother, my sister, but not the people surrounding me. And being at Farm and Wilderness allowed me in a lot of ways to be who I really wanted to be and to help others be who they were without any judgment being made about whether it was something that I should do, shouldn't do, whether it was appropriate for me to do it. And I have lived my life like that ever since. And I really do take it back to my very first summer and my memories of being there. And I've really appreciated everything everybody has said. And if you remember the book that I said that I read to the cabin, Cheyenne Autumn, one of my favorite sayings that I have in my home is this one: all the things that ever happened here were as of today, because what has been done in a place is always there.
You know, I think Baird said it really well, that, you know, we've been to the brink over these first 70, 75 years. And we're very pleased that we are in a place of great strength and great promise. And we really appreciate your being here tonight to show your commitment and your understanding that this is a venture worth committing another 70 years of support and sustainability to. So we want to thank you for that. That concludes our panel for tonight.